Great. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the second episode, the second in our series that we're calling Inspiration Hour. I'm really excited to see everybody here. We've got 136 people registered today, and I know why, because this is a very, very hot topic. So I'll start out. I just want you to know my name is Tara Mastel. I work for Montana State University Extension, and I'm in the Community Vitality Program. We also are known as the Community Development Program. We really work hard across the state to promote rural community vitality. We're the ones that organize and manage the Reimagining Rural program that's happening all across the state. And we work a lot also in helping community-based leaders gain skills and help them learn how to work better together with our Big Sky, Big Leadership program. And we're doing this Inspiration Hour webinar series that's happening all throughout 2023 because we're moving back Reimagining Rural from a fall program to about this time next year. So we wanted to do some programming that would keep folks engaged and give people some information on topics that they really are interested in. We know these are really hot topics that we picked to talk about this year. So every one of these sessions is designed to help you solve and address really pressing challenges and help you figure out the very first step. So we know that there's a lot of people in our small towns that don't have a full-time employee that can do a lot of this stuff for them. So we're really looking at volunteers that are working hard to make their communities a better place. And so all of these webinar series are on these very hot topics and designed to give you the very first step of what you can do and also who you can call to help you if you don't have that expertise locally. So that's where we're at with our program so far. And today we have the most exciting topic, because every time we get people together to talk about their town, one of the first things that comes up is, well, if we could just get that old building downtown or at the edge of town or somewhere in town, if we could get that building up and running and going, then we would be able to use it for a coffee shop, a gathering center, a community hall, anything like that. So that's what we've got for you today. We've got Jason Seyler. He works for the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, and he works in the Brownsfields, kind of manages that Brownsfields program there. And we have Cathy Barta. She is the Brownsfields manager at Snowy Mountain Development in Lewistown. So, and Jason is in Helena, and you can see them there on the page. Do you guys want to introduce yourself real briefly, Jason and Cathy? Jason first.
Sure. Again, my name is Jason Seyler. I've been doing brownfields for over 15 years in Montana, and have been working on sites across Montana, both in small communities as well as large communities, big sites, little sites, and just looking. We are fortunate in the fortunate position. We have a lot of money that can help assist you guys in these projects. So feel free to reach out to us if this talk inspires you.
Great. Cathy.
And as Tara mentioned, my name is Cathy Barta. I oversee the Brownfields program for Snowy Mountain Development. We serve 11 counties of central Montana, and we currently have about 26 active projects going on. So lots of challenges that we've encountered and overcome. And again, we invite you to reach out to us if you ever have any questions beyond this presentation. So thanks, and appreciate being here.
Thank you so much. I also want to introduce Sharon Henderson. She doesn't have her camera on right now, but Sharon is part of our team at MSU Extension Community Development. There she is. You can message Sharon privately if you have any challenges with technology or anything like that. We are recording this session. We're going to send it out. We're going to send the recording out to everybody that registered. So to get us started, I've got a little survey that we're going to do, a little Menti survey, and this is going to give us some. Can you guys see that okay? Jason, give me a thumbs up. Does that look good? Yep. Okay. So this is a mentee survey. We just want to give our speakers some information about who's on the call today. So if you can do this on your phone or if you're at your desk, you can open up another window and do this on your browser. But if you go to menti.com and enter this code 73079358, you will get into this website. You don't have to register. You don't have to enter any of your information at all. It just asks you questions. We have 3 questions that we're going to answer, and you can see it live. So it's kind of a fun thing to do too. So I'm going to fast forward. So here's our first question. So let us know if you could answer this question for us. Just go to menti.com and enter this code. We're really curious to see what size of town people are joining us from. Are you small town, a medium, large town, or a bigger city? So just enter that. You can. So go to menti.com and use that code 73079358. So there you go, Jason. We've got a lot of small town folks joining us today, which I think is just great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, really good to know. Thank you, everybody, for helping us out with that. It's very helpful. And it's great to know that we've got lots of small town folks, but also, people from all over. I know we've got some people that are at the state level too that are joining us to kind of see what everybody else is learning, and they can use that information to help others too. Okay, I'm going to give you the kind of 5-second warning. Answer this question. I'm going to forward it on to the next question in just a second. We have one more question that we're going to do before Jason and Cathy get started. Okay, here we go. I'm going to the next question. Let us know. So today you're joining us. You took time out of your day to join us to look at this topic of renovating that old building. What is the priority for your use? Are you looking at a single family house renovation, a multifamily apartment, a downtown building? Is there a gas station you're thinking about? Is there a park or a green space? Or maybe there's an industrial or manufacturing building that you're looking at getting back into reuse. What is it that you're looking at? This is awesome. So 65% of folks are saying a downtown building, 70, getting close to 70. So some single family house, some multifamily apartment, maybe 1 or 2 gas stations, it looks like. Good thing we added that park or green space. We were just debating on that one. So we've got a few that are interested in that. Cool. Okay. Look good, Jason?
That looks great.
Yeah.
That will help us. And I think hopefully you came to the right place, because that's what we are going to be focusing on your downtown properties, your downtown buildings, and how we can get those transformed. So
Great. Okay.
great.
I'm gonna close this out, but keep this website open. We have one final question at the end that we will ask after Jason and Cathy are done. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass the baton over to Jason.
Okay.
And they can get started on their presentation. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Okay. How are we looking? Are we up?
Looks good. Looks really good.
Okay. Well, like I said, my name is Jason Seyler, and I'm one of Montana DEQ Brownfields coordinators, and we have Cathy Barta with us from Snowy Mountain. She's their redevelopment director. And today we're going to talk to you about how to rehab your old building, or that old building, the building that's sitting there. And in this case, we're actually going to we're going to kind of use a case study for the Crowley block in Lewistown. But before we get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of this, we're going to kind of give you a brief introduction into brownfields. Brownfields is, some of you may have heard of it, some of you have kind of heard some things of it, but don't really understand how it really works. And we're going to kind of step you through give you kind of a basic introduction. And so with any brownfields presentation, we kind of usually start with a Camaro. And you may be asking yourself, well, how does brownfields relate to a Camaro? And we're gonna kind of imagine this is gonna be an imaginative presentation. So imagine that you're driving. You've always had in your mind. You've always been wanting to kind of redevelop that old Camaro and restore it, and kind of been always keeping your eye open for a hot rod. And you're driving down the street, and you see this, and you kind of stop and you pull, you turn around, and you're like, well, is it a Camaro? And then you like look at it and you're like, no, it's not quite a Camaro, but it is a Mercury Cyclone GT, and it's for sale for 2,500. And you're like, wow. And most of you would know better to not just write the check right now, right away, because the first thing you would want to do is you would want to look around. You would want to walk around the car, and you would see, ooh, well, maybe the hood's not quite factory, and the hubcaps are missing, and maybe it's got a donut on the front wheel, and like, and now you're really on the fence. Is it really worth that 2,500? And what you really want to know is you really want to pop open that hood, and take it for a test drive and see what's going on, and know what you're getting into. Because if it's the one on the left, then that 2,500, it might be a steal. But if it's the one on the right, that's kind of like, let's just walk away. It might not be worth it. There might be too much involved with that. So we're not gonna touch it. And the way that relates to brownfields is this is the same scenario which associated with the property that this car is sitting on. This is an old gas station. It's currently not being used, but it is for sale and lease. You can see in the sign there, lease it, call this number. And unfortunately, with these old buildings, there's a lot of concerns, the similar concerns. What's underneath the hood? And what would happen if we took it for a test drive? And you can't just open up the hood to see inside it, but we can use brownfields funds to do what we call an environmental assessment. And that essentially tells you what's going on in the property. What are your liabilities? What are you getting into? What is the actual costs? There's the sticker price, but then there's the actual costs. There's the total costs of redeveloping this property. And that's what brownfields can help you figure out. And in scenario, this is a site in Livingston. It was right on Park Avenue in Livingston, right before you got to downtown. And it sat like this for a number of years because everybody was kind of concerned. It was that perception. Oh yeah, there's a lot of leaks on that site. And Brownfields was called in. There's someone interested in buying it, but they weren't sure if they should or whether or not the price was right. And so we did an investigation. We found that in fact there were no leaks at this site. There was no contamination. There was no liability that they were getting into. The owner was getting into, and it quickly sold and transferred hands. And the new owner decided to turn it into a realtor's office. It's now cleaned it up, got rid of the awnings, got rid of the dispenser islands, and now it's a nice new realtor's office. And so this is kind of gives you the idea of what brownfields is and what it can do. So as far as definitions go, brownfields are the official definition from EPA is because it's an EPA program. It's any property where the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse is complicated by the presence or even the potential presence of a hazardous substance or contamination. And we highlight the presence because on sites where we know there's contamination there, yeah, that's definitely an issue that we can address. But oftentimes it's that potential presence. And so the one on the left that you see here, that's Bob Chevron in Harleton. That one we knew there was a petroleum release. That was something that was on DEQ's record. But in this case, the Chamber of Commerce decided that, that's not really what we want to have in our community downtown. It was on the corner of Central and Main. and it was not the image that they were wanting to portray to visitors to their community. And so they actually bought it and used brownfields to get it cleaned up. Um, the Cass department store was in downtown Big Sandy. Uh, it's a lot of stores kind of came boom and then busted, and then you're left with plywood and no trespassing signs. And everybody in the community, that's where this potential presence came in, because they thought well, it's of that era where asbestos could be there, but we didn't really know how much. And in the end, there was really just some asbestos floor tile that was really easy to get cleaned up. And it really didn't cost a lot of money. And so the property was able to get redeveloped. Kathy, do you want to talk about the Beagles Bar?
Sure. So that property on the right-hand side with the two-story structure that's white on top with the boarded up doors, that's Beagles Bar that experienced a catastrophic fire. What you can't see from Main Street, it's located in Main Street, Harlowton, is the back of it is just a burned out wreckage. The roof has collapsed, and this sat vacant for years and years and years. Because the property owner just didn't want to deal with it because, again, suspected asbestos intermixed with the fire debris, which is expensive to deal with. And it's just easier not to just deal with it at all. Well, one of the reasons that became a higher priority was directly adjacent to it on the left side is the city of Harlowton's City Hall. And over the years, because the fire debris hadn't been dealt with, it was causing water damage to those adjacent buildings because the manner in which the debris was sitting was actually directing the water to both of those exterior buildings. So yeah, it definitely became a higher priority project, and we were able to address that. And again, it was one of those things where the asbestos, when it's been burned, you need to then treat all the fire debris as suspected contamination. And it could be kind of costly for someone wanting to come in to a building like that and invest in that, because right off the bat, in addition to the property purchase, that's a lot of money to deal with that kind of activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when you're dealing with either a community organization or a developer, small business owner, these are kind of the steps in traditional redevelopment that they go through. First, you have to find a site. Second, if there's any planning or zoning or any community input you want to see happen at these sites, especially if you're a public entity trying to purchase maybe one of these old downtown buildings, what does the community want to see here happen? Then if it is an old building, downtown building, then you may have that asbestos concerns or lead-based paint or some of these other issues. Those environmental assessments, they can cost a lot of money. Sometimes they even cost more than the cleanup. And then once you find out how much is there, then you actually have to address it. And then after you go through those first four steps, you finally get to redeveloping your property. And oftentimes developers just say it's not worth it. And that was the reason why the Brownfields program was created, is because with a little bit of public funding with the Brownfields program, we can help you with those first four steps so that the redevelopment cost, you can actually focus on the redevelopment. You aren't encumbered by those first four steps as much as you would be traditionally. And so it's helping with the redevelopment of these programs. Within DEQ, we are a small niche. We consider ourselves a redevelopment program with an environmental angle. And so we're here to help get these properties redeveloped. That's our primary focus. So what's the magic ingredient to successful brownfield sites? A number of these, or most of these, are in downtown, and it's like, what does the community want or need or desire to happen to these properties? And a lot of times, I mean, I'm here in Helena. We have an office and a person up in the office in Kalispell. There's three of us total that cover the entire state, and it's not going to be DEQ can't solve all of your problems, and neither can Cathy Barta. But we can help. We want to be a member of your team. But what we're looking for is we're kind of looking for someone to come in, or a community group. In this instance, it was the Chamber of Commerce in Harleton. They transformed that old gas station into a little community park. Welcome to Harleton Park. And the Cass department store, the local group came in and transformed that Karst department store into a public library. And then in the instance of the Beagles Bar, it was working with Cathy, and the city decided to take ownership of it, and they essentially got rid of all the contamination there, and have since sold it as a clean vacant lot, but also a lot that is now not impacting the adjacent structures. And so what's needed? Well, the reality, what's needed is you need a champion. You need a local champion, because Cathy and I can't be everywhere. We can help with sites all over the Montana, but we need that local champion to come in and kind of spearhead these projects. So let's talk about our project site here that we're going to do the case study on, and Cathy can give you the introduction.
Yeah, this is a great building. This building, the Crowley Block, was constructed in the early 1900s. The gentleman Daniel Crowley, when he came to Lewistown in the late 1880s, he initially had a livery stable and a saloon in that location. And then he passed away shortly thereafter, and his widow wanted to do something better for the community. And she really wanted to do something that occupied the whole block. So she paid for this building to be built, and her intention was for it to, again, occupy the entire block. And her investment was all in total $60,000. And before it was even finished, she had the main floor leased out to the Schweitzer's department store. The mid-level, the second story, was a leased office space. And then the upper stories, the third stories, was actually a community dance hall and meeting space originally. And so this building occupies the heart of downtown Lewistown. And so when it came into a state of vacancy, it actually significantly impacted the downtown area. And over time, it played a pretty prominent role, and it went from being the heart and soul to kind of the rotted tooth of the community, and it sat vacant. But fortunately for us, our community had an amazing community champion in the form of Cathy Bailey. And she definitely was instrumental in spearheading the connections of the players as part of this building getting started. And you can see there's some interior pictures over time. The Crowley Block was converted at one point in time for about 20 years. There was J.C. Penney on the Main Street level. And then in the 1960s, during the Depression, they converted the second and third stories into housing because they needed housing much more than they needed a community dance hall. So they definitely reconstructed those levels into residential housing. And when Boeing was doing the missiles in central Montana area, those units were occupied primarily by Boeing employees. And in fact, when they left in the mid 60s, they ceased to rent them out anymore. So the upper stories had been vacant since the late 1960s. So it's quite a long time. And then the main level, street level, had various mini mall and different businesses in there, with the last one leaving in 2016. So it sat vacant for quite a while.
And not only did the upper floors set vacant, they also kind of put in all this insulation and HVAC systems, kind of changing the desirability in the upper floors for renovation. And like Cathy was saying, it took Cathy Bailey to champion this project. She knew that this was the heart of Lewistown, and it's going to take someone a force, and Cathy was nothing but a force to make this this change. And one of the great thing about Cathy is she knew she could keep calm and she could ask for help. She was not afraid to ask for help, and so she lit the bat signal. And we're going to take you through how that all transpired. So Cathy was fantastic. She would get on the phone and talk to anybody about this site. And one of the first persons that she reached out to was me at DEQ. I was the Brownfields coordinator, or still in Brownfields coordinator. And unfortunately, at the time when she reached out, we didn't have a lot of money. That has since changed with the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. We have since received a $2 million grant for assessing these properties, as well as potentially, and as well as a $1 million grant that could help potentially with the cleanup of these properties. At that time, we didn't have the funds that we have now. And so what I did is I consider myself a resource. And so I reached out to Greg Davis with the EPA. EPA Brownfields program has even more money than we do. And so at the time they were able to use their consultant to go out and do a phase 1 and a phase 2 on the building. This did an asbestos inspection, and also almost more importantly, it provides a cost estimate. How much are those contaminants going to cost? What is going to be the overall cost of renovating and redeveloping this property? That's huge when you're putting together your business plan or your business model. When that line item says liabilities, and you leave a question mark there, banks generally don't appreciate that. And so what the Brownfields program tries to do is we try to help fill in that blank and fill in that question is kind of what is it going to cost? Cathy, you can talk about what happened next.
Sure. So about this time is when I got hired into Snowy Mountain Development. And unfortunately, Cathy was also diagnosed with a terminal illness. As she was battling that, I kind of helped to transition a little bit more of a project lead. And with the phase 2, we were armed with information. And I want to back up just a little bit. That phase 2 environmental site assessment was done at no cost to the prospective buyer or the seller. So EPA and DEQ are working together to make these things happen at no cost to anybody. Our services are always free. And again, so everything we were doing was at no cost to the seller or the buyer. At this point in time, the champion of the community, Cathy Bailey, had also been instrumental with a local community health clinic coming to Lewistown, known as One Health. And so she had been in conversations with Dr. Mark, and the community had become such a success, they were looking to expand. And so she, highlighted this building, like this might be an opportunity for you to expand your services. And they went and took a tour of it, and they fell in love with it, and they weren't afraid of the status of it. I don't know how well you could see in that photo in the lower right, where it shows the HVAC system, and you see what appears to be pink carpeting. That's actually loose fiberglass insulation, and it was about 10 inches deep. So most of the people that had toured the building saw that and just immediately left. But One Health wasn't afraid, and they entered into an agreement for purchasing, as well as requested Snowy Mountain Development's help with a revolving loan fund cleanup. And we were all too happy to get involved and help support him with that. And in Cathy's experience as a certified regional development corporation, she also knew that there were funding sources that might facilitate and help offset the overall cost with making this happen. And so she encouraged them to also apply for a Montana Historic Preservation Grant, and they were successful with that. And in looking at the Historic Preservation Grant, they had been in communication with High Plains Architects, who was very experienced with doing renovations of historic buildings and very knowledgeable about historic tax credits. So they brought a level of expertise to the table also, and took a look at an additional funding source in the source of historic tax credits. And did you want to take it from there, Jason, about additional, or you want me to keep going?
Well, at that point, yeah, I think Randy was also very familiar with the revolving loan fund and the cleanup assistance that you guys could provide. And so we have in the diagram that Dr. Mark reached out to Cathy Barta, who is the Wonder Woman in this picture, and she kind of held their hands, stepped them through that process. But at that time, they were also thinking, what were their thoughts on the second and third floor?
So initially they were wanting to do housing because they knew with they would have visiting physicians. They wanted to have housing for their physicians to come, and also the additional staff might need housing. So they were looking to lease out both the second and third floors with housing, but there was much more housing that they had planned use for. And again, I believe it was Kathy Bailey that may have mentioned Homeward, because they had had a previous project partnership with Homeward Incorporated out of Missoula, which is a nonprofit organization with extensive experience with renovating housing. And so they were invited to the table and were interested in this project, and decided to partner with One Health to create Crowley Flats. And so we were all too excited to invite them to the table. That invitation also brought some additional complexities to the project as well.
Yeah, and so at this point, you had all the players at the table talking, and they One Health actually received both a grant and a loan. Is that correct for the abatement costs?
Yes.
So in some situations, if you're a public entity or a nonprofit, you can receive grant funds to clean up to do the cleanups. In other situations, you get you can be provided a loan to help kind of defer those costs. And so Snowy Mountain Development has a revolving loan fund that can provide with both. DEQ also has some cleanup funds that can help assist with these properties. And so at this point, Kathy hired two environmental professionals, both Safe Tech and WWCE, and they were in charge of cleaning up the building and doing all the abatement there. So, but it was with the involvement of there's always wrinkles inside and hiccups. But one of the issues that came up was with the involvement of the affordable housing, you have HUD all of a sudden gets invited to the conversation, and sometimes it gets a little complicated. And Kathy, do you want to explain how that transpired there?
Yes, so we had hired WWC Engineering to oversee, to act as a qualified environmental professional, which our projects are required to have. And we had done what we call we required a pre-bid walkthrough because the project was going to be quite complicated, and we wanted all the contractors to come on site. And at this point, we knew that Homeward was involved, that it would be HUD funding to help provide the housing on the upper levels. And as we were doing the pre-bid walkthrough of the facility, the environmental contractors coming to bid had experience with HUD properties, and they knew in the manner in which we had published the scope of work, we had not clearly accounted for the complexities that HUD was going to bring to it. So it caused us to pause, and we actually paused the solicitation and went back and revisited, did a bunch of research, and recognized we needed to amend our solicitation and then split it out and do a second one to address the complexities that the HUD specific requirements were going to bring to the equation. And without trying to be too vague about it, when you introduce HUD requirements to housing, which when you have lead-based paint into a property, an effective way to abate lead-based paint is to encapsulate it. You basically paint over it with a specialized paint that's going to make sure it doesn't chip or peel away from the main source. and it adheres it to the wall or door or exterior, whatever it is, and that's sufficient. However, when you invite HUD funding to the situation, HUD requires absolutely no lead continues to persist. Well, when you encapsulate it, it's still there. It's just not at risk of peeling. But when you have HUD funding, you basically have to remove it as close to you can in its entirety. And so it completely changed what we had planned to do and increased the cost of the project significantly. But we had the funding to support that, and we just had to pivot and relook at it and then amend and create a second solicitation for that.
Right. And fortunately, it was caught early on, and it was because it was the team effort, the conversations that were going on. And we are by far not disparaging HUD. They offer fantastic service and assistance. It was but it was just a wrinkle that we weren't aware of in the beginning of the project. So we were able to get over that at that time. Another wrinkle happened with the inside. Once the inside was cleaned up, it was the exterior posed a different wrinkle. And Cathy, take it away on this one.
So going back to the Crowley Flats and the HUD investment, Crowley Flats Homeward was looking at also additional funding opportunities to help provide this residential housing. So they were looking at what's called new market tax credits because the cost of the project, fit that bill. One of the requirements when it comes to new market tax credits is you have to have a phase 1 environmental site assessment done within 6 months of closing on those tax credits. Well, the previous phase 1 and phase 2s that had been done as part of the EPA's program, done at no cost when the building was still vacant, had been done in 2017, which was well beyond the 6-month time period. So they reached out to us to see, would we be willing to support conducting an additional phase 1? And we were all too happy to make that happen. So we reached out to EPA and got Greg involved. And however, looking at the phase 1, one of the oversights we had in the beginning was when One Health purchased the property and the phase 1 and phase 2 was done on the building, we neglected to account for the additional separate titled property of the parking lot. And so the original phase 1 and phase 2 did not encompass the parking lot property to the rear of the building, which you saw behind the superhero photos where the garbage can was. But the additional phase 1 and phase 2 as part of the new market tax credits did actually take a look at that. And unbeknownst to us, well, there actually used to be a gas station on that vacant property, which then created additional complexities, which is not uncommon with the brownfields. And again, we reached out to our partners because we can't do this project in a vacuum. We absolutely need to have those partnerships working together. So again, we just reached out to Jason, who kind of saved our bacon.
Yeah, and because of the old gas station there, the HUD rightfully had concerns about potential vapors entering the building. I mean, obviously, if this is affordable housing, it's already a sensitive population, and we want to be protective of that sensitive population. And this is a health center and affordable housing. We want to make sure that everything is done properly. I was able to look at, Cathy reached out to me and was like, hey, Jason, can you take a look at this? And I was sure. I was able to review the report, and essentially I provided HUD as well as all of the other partners with a review of the results and my interpretation that there was no impacts to that building because of the historic gas station there. And so with that, the property was able to continue to be redeveloped. So again, we got over that hurdle, but it did take a team effort to make sure that all the parties were satisfied with those results. But in addition to the redevelopment or the resurfacing, there was also added benefit to this project. And Cathy, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So as with any project that we take a look at, we look at it holistically, how best to, take advantage of different programs. And one of the things One Health did was they informed the city that they plan to resurface this large parking lot area behind the building. And the city reached out and they're like, if you're going to do that, our alleyway needs to be resurfaced as well. Can we partner with you while you have this parking lot, torn up for what you plan to do for improvements? And can we make it available to other businesses adjacent to your business? Because the original infrastructure for water and sewer was ancient. And so the volume of the pipes serving both the sewer and water needed to be increased in size to best serve the needs of the health center. And so the city did a public notice to notice the other businesses. If you want to take advantage of this ground being torn up and just invest in your own, piping to serve your business, here's an opportunity for doing it super cheap. And oh, by the way, this business is located in a tax increment financing district, which that central part of the Lewistown business area falls within, which then made additional grant funding available to cover up to half the cost of each individual project for each business that wanted to take advantage of it. And there were several of them that did want to take advantage of in improving their infrastructure, serving their business. So it was an added bonus and benefit to those adjacent businesses that did take advantage of it. And it was just a win-win for the community.
So, Cathy, how long from start to finish? What did it take to go from this to this? Because that's a lot of times people wonder, like what.
So, One Health had reached out to Cathy Bailey the same month that I was hired. It was within the same week Dr. Mark had come in and set a meeting with Cathy Bailey. And so that was August of 2019. One Health just began serving patients October of 2022. And Crowley Flats is accepting applications to begin leasing out those residential properties as early as this May of 2023. And there will be 16 units of residential apartments available to lease coming May of 2023, which is so incredibly important for our community. So it took quite a while. I mean, what's that, 4 years? Just shy of 4 years.
Right. Okay. And it also took a lot of partners. Like we say, you can see the thank you donors there on the wall. It was quite the collaborative effort to make this happen. But in the end, you have this fantastic reuse of this building, downtown building. It's providing critical services to a high needs population. And I fortunately was able to tour the building on its grand opening, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It was just so well done what they did there, and this is the look that you have on the exterior of the property, walking down Main Street. And what has this done to the neighborhood?
So the one thing, and I'm glad you bring that up, Jason, because you could see just down the sidewalk a ways as you're looking west, the building directly adjacent to it was a vacant space that had been vacant for quite a while, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And when One Health was just about ready to open the doors, they had the glass installed and the exterior was just looking beautifully. A community artist came in and leased that space right next to it and created and renovated that into an art gallery. And it's just beautiful. And so it is this building that once was the heart and soul of the community that then became like a rotten tooth is now once again part of this beautiful center of our downtown area. Again, the heart and soul. And if any of you are familiar with the Harlowton area and the Graves Hotel, the impact of losing a piece of your soul of the community, it's indescribable, the gut-wrenching feeling you have at that loss. And that's another risk that you have with leaving these buildings sitting vacant and, blighted for years on end. That just becomes a potential. And so by investing in these historic properties, we're recycling these old buildings. We're preserving our history of our downtown communities, and we are reigniting the heart and soul of our downtown areas, which is what us as a regional development corporation, that's kind of our sole purpose, is to invest back into our communities and make sure we're keeping that, viable. So it's just important to do.
Yeah, and you oftentimes see that domino effect happening across blocks, and then it'll spread down to the next block, and it's really really cool to see when one brownfield success or one redevelopment success happens, how it tends to multiply and spread. So a lot of people think that success looks like the picture on the left, but when things get a little squirrely and things happen on the right, that's when you know to call us. If it's easy, you don't need to involve us. But if it does get hard and there's hiccups and wrinkles, more than one wrinkle, we are there to help. And for us, this is the success. This is what success looks like for us in the brownfields world. These are all successfully redeveloped brownfields properties, bringing communities together and also providing jobs, increased tax bases, and also just communal spaces that are important for all of Montana. And the important message, I think, is that no one person can save the world all by themselves. It does take a team. And the question often is like, well, who do I reach out to first? And the great news is you have a number of resources at your disposal. I always recommend, feel free to reach out to me directly, but I always recommend reaching out to your certified regional development corporations, because they all of them are familiar with brownfields. They are all involved in the brownfields program. They can step you through the process. They know to reach out to me, and they are your local resource. They are kind of what I call boots on the ground, and they know what's going on in your community. And Cathy, you can talk about the other services you guys could provide as well as brownfields.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And part of the reason for that too is, I don't think I've had a single project that is straightforward and simple. Even those ones that don't cost that much. I just know if it appears to be straightforward and simple, I just haven't found the surprise in it yet. And so I always reach out to both Jason and Greg and different community partners for every single project, just to inform them of what we have going on, and then to ask them, are they aware of any different kind of programs that this type of project might be eligible to seek out leverage funding for. And then once I invite them to the table, when those little surprises come about, then we've already began that conversation, and they're, oh yeah, I'm familiar of that. Well, this is what I know about this situation. And they're just more informed about the project. And so we just don't do anything in a vacuum here. If anything, I probably over communicate. Like Jason knows a little bit of everything about all of my properties.
Right.
And then that's also how I've learned what I have learned about the program. Is just by doing that outreach. So that would be the one thing I would, encourage anyone out there that's considering that or thinking about it, or has a brownfields but has a challenging project they're not sure how to begin with, is just, have that conversation, initiate that conversation. And sometimes brainstorming with the players at the table will help you immediately start overcoming some of those challenges, just different approaches and different experiences. So yeah, that's what I would, definitely say. And then having that higher level view of other funding opportunities, as mentioned with Kathy Bailey and the Historic Preservation Grant or historic tax credits. I saw very quickly somebody ask a question with the exterior of Crowley. By the renovations, did those changes actually meet historic tax credits? Well, that's the thing when you use an architect with that experience in historic tax credits. That original storefront, they restored it to the original look of the storefront. What you had saw when it was sitting blighted was renovation changes they had made throughout the years. So they actually restored it to how it had looked originally. So yes, yes, it did meet that very well. And then the new windows that you saw in the building, those are actually the existing windows that were refurbished. They actually use the original windows. So yes, it absolutely does meet the historic tax credits, because there's a set of guidelines they have to follow to do that. And if you don't get the money. So they follow them very carefully.
And I think the message here is that not any one person can know it all, and so we just bring as I can definitely help with the environmental side of things, but I know nothing about new market tax credits, and that's when I hand it over to the economic development experts, because that's their specialties, and then bringing in like everybody that Kathy was mentioning. So I think these are definitely partnerships, and so we work together collaboratively, and we're all passionate about these projects that we work on. So we're with that. I think just kind of providing our contact information again, but again, we are partners. There are partners found throughout Montana. So again, you're not alone. It's all trying to put together your team is what's important. We consider ourselves resources, not regulators, especially within the DEQ world, and we offer funding and environmental expertise. So with that, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, and I would dovetail with Jason to encourage you to reach out to us, even if you have a program. Just like in the past, just by having those conversations with different regional development corporations, we've offered ideas for how we do our request for proposals for qualified environmental professionals, where we hire 5 at a time and then make them compete for a project, so they're always cost efficient, as opposed to just hiring one. Because when you just hire the one to oversee all your projects, then they can hold you hostage for how much they're going to charge you for these different projects getting accomplished. And so we just have, had experience for how to keep our projects to be most cost efficient and how to maximize the money that we have available to the best of our abilities. So and we definitely are more than happy to help, because the more that we inform people, the better projects that we can get accomplished throughout the state.
Excellent. That's so great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. We have some really great questions. Before we get into that, we're going to go back to the Menti survey, and we want to find out what is it that you're interested in using your space for if it were to be redeveloped. And so I am sharing this here. This is where we ended up. Your priority for reuse. A lot of people said downtown buildings. So the last, and this is our last one. And this makes, if you're allowed to enter, I think you can enter 2 things, but what do you want to use the space for? And so go back to menti.com and enter this code 73079358. And then this is going to make a really cool word cloud. So tell us what you want to use your space. So this building or the space or the whatever it is, what do you want to use the space for? So we've got community space, a wrestling facility, recreation center, commercial, art co-op. I love this. This is like the hopes and dreams of our towns across the state. Office space, meeting space, community center, affordable homes, entertainment, retail, a bakery, office, a gym. We hear these a lot. This is so great. Entertainment. coffee shop. So that community space, art, knitting co-op. Ooh, I want to go to that. Bowling, supportive services. Great. Maybe 10, 15 seconds more. Enter your thing that you want your space to be. Student community center. Tea house, nonprofit. Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing. I'll save this, and we'll save this recording, and I'll send out this so everybody can see that. I just have to say, that's such an inspiring story to hear you talk about. And I can't wait to go to Lewistown next time. In my previous life, when I was extension agent working in Jefferson County, we had a lot of the steps that you talked about, we went through with the Borden's building in downtown Whitehall. Same thing. It used to be the heart of the community, and then it was the rotten tooth in front of the face. And now, once again, we went through this, and it's not easy, and it's expensive, and it's a lot involved, but now it is once again the heart of the community, and it's hard to find a parking spot in front of it. It used to be full of tumbleweeds, and now it's beautiful. But so I just want to point out to everybody that phase 1 and phase 2, that's the first step. That's the information. So people say that a lot, where we don't have the answer. We don't know if it's got asbestos or whatever, but that phase 1, phase 2, that gives you those answers. Okay, so let's go to some of the questions that we have, and we have a good amount of time for questions. So because we go until 12:45, so we have some really, so please keep entering your questions into the chat if you have some. Let's start with a question from Taylor Crowell. She's with Montana Community Foundation. She's saying she loves the Crowley building. She's curious if you could talk about smaller projects that would be a good fit for brownfields. Are there any projects that are too tiny?
Do you want me to?
Sure, go ahead, Cathy.
So we are very fortunate. Our project officer at EPA is Greg Davis, and he helps us to problem solve on how to approach certain projects. And what I would call a small project right now is the boiler removal from the Levina K through 12 school. And it's as simple as that, is removing a boiler that contains asbestos from a historic school. And it's not too small. And it's, by using the Brownfields program, when you take a look at the actual cost, the cost of the activity, because we have to hire an environmental professional to oversee it, may be more if the school just paid for it themselves, but they're receiving grant funds. So they're not having to pay for any of it, because we're able to use the Brownfields program to fund the removal of the boiler, which then takes their HVAC system upgrade. It helps make that cost less for them, because then they could direct their funding to actually getting a new HVAC system and not having to pay for the removal of a boiler.
And I think that's a great example. And I do want to say, a lot of people's like, well, okay, we've got plenty of boilers. One of the reasons why Brownfields is available for this project is because that the room that current boiler is sitting in is going to be reused, and it's going to be repurposed as something else. And that's one of those, okay, when we're going down and checking, this is all government funds, so you have to jump through all these different hoops. But one of the hoops that you have to jump through is there a new or reusable use for this this property? If the property was an empty parking lot, and it's going to stay an empty parking lot, there's no reuse there, so it's not really doesn't really fit in the brownfields world. But if it's a parking lot that is going to be a coffee shop, then yes, then you have that reuse component, and that's where brownfields can come in and help.
So can I just ask, so for Cathy, for your example with the boiler in the school, what was step number 1? So the folks at Levina School said, hey, we have to get this thing out of here, but there's asbestos. What is the first thing that they would do?
So again, this is our holistic approach to serving communities. They had originally approached Snowy Mountain Development way back in 2014 when they knew their coal-fired boiler was failing, to help get a new boiler system. So Snowy Mountain Development had helped them apply for multiple different grants, and each time they were unsuccessful. And then I believe it was in 2019 when we had, I don't know if you remember, there was about 6 weeks where we were between 30 and 40 below. The school boiler failed multiple times, and they were having to evacuate these 5 and 6-year-old school children through 40 below weather to an adjacent church just so they could keep warm. And that's when the school superintendent just really started doing a better campaign of, we need this support. And so it escalated in attention, and then they were successful with a community development block grant to get that HVAC system, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system replaced. And as a result of being successful with that grant, we came back into the picture to help do what we could to decrease their investment with making that happen, where we can bring brownfields to the picture to pay for the cost of the boiler removal and the renovation of that empty space once it was removed. These boilers are quite large, so when you remove them, there's an entire room that you can then reuse for another purpose. And so we had been part of the equation for almost 10 years at that point.
Okay, great. So, so you are with the CRDCs, which is Certified Regional Development Corporations. So, but not everybody is lucky enough to have a redevelopment person like you. So, do you have any guidance for folks like
sometimes they might not
other
be
areas?
aware of a person like me, but almost without question, there's someone within the state that serves their area. And so if their first phone call would be either to myself or Jason, where we can connect them to who that person is and just doing an introduction and maybe a little intro about their project, and then helping them to do that handoff, that would be something we are more than happy to do, because we do have a lot of excellent organizations serving our entire state. And there's some, like you saw on the map, there's some that may not have someone like within that specific county. I can't remember, there might be 1 or 2, but there are plans in the works to try and integrate those into some of those. And there likely is someone serving in that role in that area, and just getting the right players to the table can help identify that.
Right.
Great.
Some of the times it's instead of a regional contact, it's a county-wide contact or even a city-wide contact. That's all it takes. And there's even the areas that are not shaded in that map, they have local economic development entities out there, and they should all be able to reach out and assist with brownfields.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think this is just such a great topic. I think I've just heard so many times like, oh, we have this building, but there's a rumor going around that it has asbestos in it, or it has lead or something, and that rumor is enough to stop any sale, any movement at all, because the mystery is daunting. But what we're talking about here is free help to get the information, the facts of what it takes to take the next step. And we in Jefferson County in Whitehall, we did it in Borden's, and we did it on the old school gym, because there was rumors about that. And so we got the phase 1 and the phase 2 with the costs. And I will just say the costs they can be really high. So you almost, but it identifies what it might be, and you can rebid it, like you said, Cathy, to get it to actual costs in your local area. Okay, we have a specific question, and from Steve Zachman, and he's the mayor in Baker. And Steve has attended so many of our webinars, and I just love what they're doing in Baker. They are just on the forefront of, they're just looking at every resource that's available to them. They are so innovative, and they're doing some cool stuff. So he's got a challenging situation, and I'm just going to read it to you and tell me what you all think about this. So they have a vacant property on our main street owned by a group from another part of the state. Common story, right? It wasn't cleaned up when the building was torn down. The sidewalls remain. The concrete slab, which drains water, in drains into their sewer system, we can compel them to seal that drain, but is there some method for enforcement to compel them to finish cleaning this up? It's a decade. It's been a decade and the owners are asking too much. Must be too much of a cost for anyone to buy it. They will not agree to Brownsfield study or to verify subsoil conditions. So I think this general story is kind of common in a lot of places.
Yeah.
It's an out-of-state owner. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Those are a challenge. And like you said, they are common in our communities. There's different approaches. Some towns don't, I mean, the state of Montana does have a blight statute. If you have a city or town attorney that wants to play hardball, that's as a last resort something that you can do. But sometimes it's more helpful to have community members, if there is a mailing address, for the property owner, to have community members, just do a letter writing campaign where they reach out and say, we recognize you own this property. We're very interested in, having helping you breathe life back into our community. Right now this is an eyesore. What can we do to help you with, in creating or improving this property, and doing more of like a positive letter writing campaign. Sometimes that's powerful enough to, initiate change by, through more positive actions, because enforcement is never really ideal because, but that is something that the state does have, because there are a lot of towns. And then if you can, show that there's adjacent, like with the Beagles Bar in Harleton, it was City Hall that was getting water damage. So the mayor was in discussion with the city attorney to take action based on the blight statute for the state if the owner didn't make a change. So what the owner chose to do is then make a donation to the city of that property. So then they could just, release themselves of the liability of any kind of further damage for that. But it took until the city attorney playing hardball before they actually made that decision.
That's a great story, Cathy. So I think that is another thing. So in our small towns, we might not have the expertise of like somebody like Cathy or Jason, but we know people and we can, it really does, it is kind of who like with us in Whitehall with the Borden's building. The owner was long moved out of state, but he still had a few connections in town and he loved the building. And we found the right person to approach him and he sold it to us as the development corporation, because he knew we would do something. He knew he had trust that we would take action. So sometimes it's really legitimately like networking through the people that like who knows that person, who lives next to their grandma, who goes to church with their mom or whatever. And it's finding the right person and that's legitimate. That is okay. So sometimes you just have to be smart about it. And you got to be smart and use what you have, which is connections and people and history and that knowledge.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the craziest stories that I remember, and Cathy was instrumental in it as well, but we actually had a property that a couple had sunk their retirement into, but it turned out to be an old gas station, and the liability associated with that gas station far out exceeded the actual cost of the building, and so there was no way. They were so underwater. It was just it was hard to imagine them getting out of it, and they couldn't just donate it because that was their retirement. And Cathy, I don't know, somehow we came up with this idea of trying to find someone that needed a tax donation, right? And so Cathy and Cathy Bailey and you guys just beat the bushes and spread the word, and you can kind of describe what happened.
You have to remind me which project you're talking about, Jason.
So that was the On Your Way.
Yes. That actually was and it was a a former gas station that they had cleaned it up once, but it wasn't enough. And so the wells kept testing to where something additional needed to be done. And then when that gentleman needed the tax write-off, the county was like, all right, well, we'll accept that. And then, when the county received the property as part of, that donation, they immediately came to us and then began the cleanup. And we actually excavated that. So Main Street is also a highway, state highway. And we actually excavated it to the very boundary of the property line to the highway, to where it was pretty extensive. It was, a hole that was 20 feet deep for the entire square all the way around, just dealing with that contamination. And it ended up, I think total project cost on that was almost 400,000. And that was just way more than a simple restaurant owner that bought it to operate a restaurant was willing to invest in that kind of a cleanup.
Right. But it took that additional resource of that person, the owner that needed the tax write-off actually paid a reasonable amount for the property and then used that, kept it for a year. And DEQ worked with them and reassured them that we were not going to bring out the big hammers and big sticks and come after them during that year that they were holding it. And then they were able to donate it with that tax write-off. And I think there was actually even a bidding war for this contaminated piece of property, which is kind of unheard of, but for that tax write-off. So we can get creative, and
Yeah.
we just use examples of what we've done in the past, but we always look for different angles.
So, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted, we're talking about tax write-offs. Another thing that we also have encountered were adjacent property owners pressuring elderly property owners with a perception of contamination, trying to get them to sell a property super cheap, and then coming to us looking for brownfields funding. And we actually supported the elderly property owner and made them aware of other opportunities so that they couldn't be pressured to sell a commercial property for way cheaper than, they could get on a commercial market. And so we informed them of our program and things that were available to them, as well as a tax donation, so that they weren't getting that undue pressure from someone that just wanted, really, really cheap property. And we're always going to be an advocate for what is right for our communities.
Great. Yes, I love that comment. So Cher Justo is on the call, and she just said that a reminder that Preserve Montana is a great partner, and they are. When I was working on the Bordens building, I would just call people up, and Cher was one of them. Like, hey, we're working on this. Any ideas? Can you point me in any direction? And they were just so great. And that's another thing I love about small towns is Montana is everybody. It's a small community. Everybody knows everybody. So we're getting short on time. We have another question here that I don't think we got to. Does the intent, from Deborah Wilson, does the intent need to be repurpose a building into something new, or can the purpose be to restore a building? Our theater has been shuttered for years, and our nonprofit purchased it 2 years ago to restore it. Deborah, is that in Thompson Falls? I'm just curious.
Yep.
Anyways, do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yes. It's just reuse, repurpose, or renovate.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be something different.
Yeah, great.
And so right now we consider that theater out of use, and so it's not being used as a theater. It's just vacant, and so the reuse and repurposing of that as a theater is definitely a legitimate brownfields opportunity.
Sweet.
And Tara, because you mentioned Preserve Montana, I think that's an important aspect we kind of overlooked in our historic buildings. Any building that's over 50 years old has to have, consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office. And so every single property that we have that is older than 50 years old, we have to partner with those preservation organizations to, capture the history of the building and make sure we're doing the right things. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate Cher bringing that up, and because that was one small detail as part of that little mix that you saw that, we go through that is just not as well known through the steps.
Yeah, and I will just add, there's also a misperception. I think it's almost as dubious as asbestos, and that is historic preservation. And those people are also really nice people at the State Historic Preservation Office. And
Yep.
those are also people that I've called and just like, hey, what do you know? What are your ideas? And they also, like Jason, they are not enforcement people. They have a very small staff, so there's no way they can go out across the whole state and slap hands for disturbing a historic building. But they are there to help you, and they so lovely that they have money now. When we were working on Bordens, they didn't really have money. I think we got $2,000 from that, which was wonderful, but a small percentage of what the whole thing costs to renovate. So they have money and they can help you, and they're very resourceful, and they don't have anybody to enforce. Now, like Butte does, because they have their own historic preservation officer. So that's a different story when you're in a town that has a historic preservation officer. But most of the vast majority of the state does not have that. So don't be afraid of that. It's only a source of money for you, and nobody's gonna get you in trouble. So it looks like we are exactly at time. I just appreciate so much. I mean, wow, what a great presentation you all put together for us today. Thank you so much for taking the time and the care for putting that together. And for everybody online, Cathy and Jason are there to answer questions for you. If you need ideas on where to get started, give them a call, and they can help you with your next first step. And there's lovely amounts of money available right now to help you with your project, which is just wonderful. So we're going to send this recording out to everybody that registered. I would, if I can get your presentation, I would love to send that out as well. And we just appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for joining in and caring enough about your town to take time out of your day to listen to something like this. We're just really appreciative that we have so many people across the state and wonderful resources. So thanks everybody. We have, okay, now we're running over, but we're doing a housing webinar on a week from today. It's just on housing, and it's really focused on rural housing. And I'll send a link out when I send the materials out for everybody. And our next session in this Reimagining Rural series is on planning a festival. So we'll include that link as well. So thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
Sarah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you.